Inside of this box is Apple's newest entry-level iPad, now in its 11th generation, featuring a meaningful performance bump and double the base storage to 128 gigs. The $349 iPad is better than it's ever been. But what are the drawbacks? Who is this actually for? And should you buy one? Let's find out. As always, I like to disclose in these videos that Apple isn't sponsoring this content. We purchase our devices directly from the store just like you would. I mention this because my thoughts on the 11th generation iPad might actually be more positive than what you might expect. Though of course I'll be discussing some of the downsides that I've spotted along the way. The previous 10th generation iPad was somewhat puzzling, mainly because when it launched back in 2022, Apple priced it at $400, which was a significant jump from the wildly popular $329 base model 9th gen that they had been selling by the millions. And it was probably telling that Apple actually kept that cheaper iPad in their lineup through May of last year. Once the 9th generation was discontinued, Apple lowered the price of the 10th gen iPad to a more reasonable $349. And thankfully, this 11th gen model maintains that same price. Now, for those of you out there that actually own a 10th generation iPad, this unboxing might trigger some serious deja vu, because basically what we're getting here is the same exact packaging and even the same colors as last time. And there we go, the iPad itself. I'm gonna lift this tab here, and as you can see, once I lift this up, I got it in the blue color, which I think is my favorite one. My 10th generation iPad was the yellow, though I wish that that colorway had a bit more gold hue to it. It seems a little green in a lot of lighting, but for this particular one, the blue, looks good pretty much anywhere. I'm going to talk more about this in just a minute, but I want to see what else they include in the box. So we have our paperwork with everything minus the Apple stickers, because that's the era we live in now. Thankfully, there is a power brick in the box, which will charge the iPad at 20 watts over USB-C. And on top of that, we have a braided USB-C cable as well. But otherwise, that is pretty much it. It's funny, actually looking at the packaging more, I feel like this box could actually be slimmer, because basically it's just the iPad components and the small envelope of paperwork. I think with a slimmer charger, this box could be half the thickness. But of course, we're not here to talk about some stupid box. Let's actually look at the 11th gen iPad itself. For your $350, I'll say that the hardware genuinely feels premium. It's aluminum and glass all around, with the same color options as the last generation. But yeah, let me get this 11th gen iPad set up, spend a little bit of quality time with it to get some early impressions in, and I'll be right back with some thoughts. Now, before I continue on, this portion of the video is sponsored by ESR. ESR make a ton of accessories for all of the devices in your life, including, of course, the 10th and 11th gen iPad. Their flip magnetic case has a couple of neat features. Apart from full coverage protection, the flip cover itself doubles as a stand that's quite versatile, helping you find the ideal angle whether you're watching content or writing. Oh, and this neat little flap makes it easy to watch vertical content. The profile of the case itself is quite slim. It also has a built-in pencil holder, but most importantly, it doesn't break the bank. Here in the US, you can pick it up on Amazon right now for $23, which is perfect to complement Apple's cheapest iPad. ESR also sent over their 9H tempered glass screen protector, which for $16 is a great way to protect your display from scratches. It was super easy to install with their Ultra Fit tray and feels just as good as a touchscreen itself, all while retaining that all too important Apple Pencil support. However, low-key, I think my favorite accessory of theirs has to be the stylus pen. This is perfect for people that want to take notes or write with their iPad, because not only is it very well priced at $30, but it also has Find My functionality built in as well, if you happen to misplace it and need to locate it. If you're curious about any of these accessories and want to pick them up for yourself, click the links in the description below And huge thanks to ESR for sponsoring this portion of the video. Alright, so I just spent the past couple of hours testing the 11th gen iPad, doing things that I would normally do on a tablet. Edited photos, watched video, tried some games, and browsed the web. And honestly, while the aesthetics remain unchanged from the 10th gen, what you are getting with this year's base model iPad is a better value proposition than what we've typically seen in the past. At $349, probably my favorite improvement has to be the jump to 128 gigs of base storage, up from 64. This upgrade is particularly valuable if you plan on installing numerous apps, especially media streaming services with offline downloading capabilities, your Netflixes and YouTube premiums. Add on storage-hungry games such as Zenless Zone Zero or Genshin Impact that can easily occupy tens of gigabytes of space, plus of course the added footprint of iPad OS itself. And Apple's decision to double the base storage significantly improves the everyday experience. Beyond that, the performance boost is another welcome enhancement. The 5-core A16 SoC in here provides a substantial spec bump over the previous generation. But perhaps even more significant is the upgrade from 4 to 6 gigabytes of RAM. This extra memory makes a noticeable difference, especially while multitasking. Switching between apps feels snappier, and the iPad can keep more applications active in the background without frustrating reloads when you return. Funny enough, despite the decent entry-level performance you're getting here, the 11th gen iPad actually falls below the threshold of receiving Apple Intelligence. However, honestly, the features that it brings has been underwhelming to the point where it's quite easy to forget and ignore that Apple Intelligence is even there, at least on the devices that actually have it. In my opinion, you shouldn't have to worry about missing out. Now, as far as gaming goes, you should probably temper your expectations a little bit, especially since this is a $350 tablet. During testing, I found myself playing ZZZ pretty comfortably at low to medium settings on the iPad's crisp 2360 by 1640 display, while maintaining around 45 to 60 FPS. The A16 is more than adequate in power to do your mobile dailies, though performance will dip, especially once the action gets a bit crazy. With that being said, if gaming is a bigger priority for you, jumping over to the iPad Air with the new M3 chip for 2025, despite the significant increase to $600, might be worth considering. Having said this, it is worth thinking about just how much performance you need out of an iPad, especially when you consider what people actually use these things for. The reality is, a lot of people primarily rely on them as portable streaming devices. More substantial than the tiny screen on your phone, but more portable than a laptop. And even more so if you are looking to upgrade from something older, such as an 8th or 9th generation iPad, because this guy also happens to have a proper stereo speaker setup as well. That sounds really good. Now, with that in mind, one of the biggest strengths of the 11th gen iPad has to be its display. It is virtually identical to the previous model, a sharp Retina display with a 1640p resolution. And yes, it is locked to 60 Hz, which is bound to disappoint some people out there, but for most media consumption, aka videos, reading books, web browsing, etc., this limitation is barely noticeable. While I might critique this a bit more harshly on its bigger brother, the iPad Air, which can cost nearly double, on a $350 tablet, this is much more forgivable, especially since otherwise the display looks fantastic. Oh, and while I didn't have quite enough time to properly evaluate the battery life, it is said to have the same 10-hour screen on time as in the 10th gen. And in my longer-term experience with that device, it was pretty on par with Apple's claims, but take that as you will. Value can be a complex topic when discussing Apple products because in some categories, such as we've seen with the iPhone 16e, they can absolutely miss the mark entirely. However, within Apple's ecosystem, I believe the $350 iPad offers better value than many people might give it credit for. It might not have the most enticing or must-have value proposition of the $599 M4 Mac Mini or $999 M4 MacBook Air, which I'm going to be doing a video on really soon. However, what you get out of the price for the 2025 base iPad makes complete sense. For students taking notes in class that might want something more reliable than a cheap tablet, or maybe parents handing something to their kids on long car rides, maybe salary workers catching up on emails at the copy shop. I said that like a Filipino. Copy shop? It's because I am Filipino. It's in my blood. And honestly, this iPad's just good for anyone that wants a general purpose compute/screen device that's again bigger than their phone, but more portable than a laptop. This is that. No more, no less. It might not be the most exciting device in the world, but again, at $350, I don't think it has to be. So, do I think you should buy one? If your current iPad is showing age, or if you're just looking to buy one as your first, the 11th gen iPad is an easy recommendation. Apple has finally found the right balance between price and performance that makes this the iPad that most people should buy. But of course, let me know if you agree in the comments below. And otherwise, thanks for watching this video on Denki channel.